Do I have anyone on the telephone lines?
Trustee Swan.
All right, Trustee Swan, hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting, October 24th, 2018, and I will ask us to stand for the singing of O Canada. Before I get the director to do roll call tonight or today, many of us are wearing purple, just in support of the Go Purple campaign that's going on right now, and that concerns Child Abuse Prevention Month. And just for the record, there is purple in this tie, and you would think, being a former TIS person, I'd have a closet full of purple, but over the years, I've lost them all. I've outgrown those shirts. So anyways, it's nice to see many of us wearing purple for tonight. Director, can I get you to do roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, trustees. This is our roll call for our meeting of 24 October 2018. Trustee Armour. First Vice Chair Karkner.
Present.
Trustee Cram.
Present.
Trustee Jacobs.
Present.
Trustee Wendy McPherson. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Present.
Trustee McAllister.
Present.
Second Vice Chair McDonald.
Present.
Chair McMillan.
Present.
Trustee Richards. Trustee Swan.
Present.
Trustee Bushra-Kadra. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You have quorum.
Thank you very much. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board approve consent agenda items 3.02 to 3.03, October 24th, 2018, as submitted. Moved by Trustee Karkner, seconded by Trustee Bill McPherson. And I'll ask you to cast your votes, please. And that carries. Thank you very much. Do we have any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing there are none, I'm going to move forward to a report to board from the private session October the 10th, 2018. At its committee of the whole meeting in private session October the 10th, 2018, 1 legal and 3 personnel matters were discussed. No recommendations were brought to board. So that concludes that. Moving forward to our first presentation, and this is the 2017 Ted Kennedy Legacy Awards Terry Fox Challenge, and I'm going to turn this over to our Superintendent of Schools, Deanna Perry.
Thank you. Ted Kennedy was inspirational in promoting the Terry Fox School Run, an annual national event that takes place every September to raise money for the Terry Fox Foundation. Last year, 2017, the Upper Canada School District and schools raised $90,170.57. This year's School Run Day was on Thursday, September the 27th. The Ted Kennedy Legacy Award is being presented in recognition of the elementary and secondary school that raised the most money per student for the Terry Fox Foundation. And this year, the 2 schools being recognized are Lagan Public School and Athens District High School.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on behalf of the board to both schools, and a thank you to all of the schools that got involved. So we thank everyone for that. And I know I can speak for almost many of the trustees. When I first came on the board 8 years ago, right where Superintendent Berry is sitting, Ted Kennedy sat there. He's an amazing man, terrible loss, but his name lives on forever, and because of what he stood for and what he believed in, and he's sadly missed. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We have 2 schools tonight. It's been a while since we've had that, and we're going to start off with Ganlockwood Secondary School. I'm going to ask, who's the superintendent that way?
Mr. Ferguson, sir.
Superintendent Ferguson, to introduce our staff.
Thank you, Chair. It's my pleasure to welcome Leslie McKellar, the Vice Principal, and Bill Loshaw up to join us at the table. When Bill was assigned as Principal to Gananoque a year and a half ago now, we met in the summer to talk about his entry plan. And usually when you meet someone after the summer, you have a little bit of a conversation around how the summer went, how your golf game was going, things like that. Bill skipped right over that and right away started to talk to me about the data at the school and some plans he had around EQAO and around assessment at the school. And we had a very lengthy conversation, and all of my follow-up visits, that's pretty much all Bill wanted to talk about. And you'll see why shortly. Bill's done some, with his team, some impressive work there. And at this point, I'll turn it over so Bill can share some of the news with everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Ron. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share information about our school profile, and about the work that we are doing through our school improvement plan for student achievement and wellness. To start, we'd like to provide you with a little bit of information about our school. Currently, we have 450 students at Gananoque Intermediate and Secondary School, 125 students in grades 7 and 8, and 325 students in grades 9 through 12. Our school is a close-knit, small-town or rural community school where students feel very familiar and comfortable with one another and with staff. And when I talk about the close-knit feel of our school, I often think of, well, the fact is I haven't been to a good old-fashioned barn dance in a while, but I think of a dance like that looking a lot like our school. Dances in the sense that if we have a dance, we have 100 students up dancing together, as opposed to having 5 groups or cliques of 20. Very close group, and a good feel within the school. We have a very positive school culture, lots of school spirit to support our many school teams, and a relaxed feel within the school. We also have a strong sense of community, and we are fortunate to have many community partnerships. Pictured on the screen, bottom left, is that we have a group of seniors that join us on a monthly basis for lunch that is put on by our hospitality students. In addition to our in-school course offerings, many students choose to take part in online learning, in dual credit programs and cooperative education programs that help to build valuable skills and explore future career possibilities. Many students also gain experiences through taking part in our Specialist High Skills Major programs, and we offer 2. We offer a Specialist High Skills Major program in sports and one in hospitality as well. Fortunate to have staff members that are very collaborative and work well together. One area that we would like to mention, though, is that historically our student achievement results, as shown through EQAO, have indicated that there was certainly room for improvement. So as a result, there was a clear focus on improving student achievement, and our most recent EQAO data shows improved results. So moving ahead, on the screen you'll see that our grade 9 applied math results from last year indicate that 72% of our students achieved at a level 3 or 4, meeting or exceeding the provincial standard. However, worth noting is that the remaining 28% of students achieved a level 2, and it's really important that we focus on how close they were to meeting the provincial standard, and we'll come back to that in a moment. Our grade 9 academic math results from last year show that 100% of our students achieved at or above the provincial standard, but within that grouping, 94% of our students achieved a level 3, and only 6%, or in our case, 1 student achieved a level 4. So our focus for this year is to move all students 1 achievement level to show an even deeper understanding of the concepts and their interconnectedness. In addition to these results, we'd also like to point out a change in attitudes towards math. In 2016, an attitudinal survey was completed by many UCDSB students, and the results were extracted for Gananoque students and compared to the results that we received this year after re-administering the same survey with our grade 9 students this year. This year's results show significant increases in the number of students who indicated that they want to develop their math skills. Good news story. That they get satisfaction out of solving math problems, that they feel they can solve math problems without too much difficulty, and also of note is that significantly fewer students indicated that they found math to be dull and boring, which is a good thing. Also, our Ontario Secondary School literacy results increased from 69% to 77%, and we will comment on these results in just a second. However, for now, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie, who will talk about some of the practices that were in place last year that align with the work that Superintendent Jody Barrett and her team had in place and the commitment of the team at the school.
Okay, so as Bill said, we're clearly excited about our test scores. We do feel the EQO scores this year are lagging indicators of the work that has gone on over the past 3 years, as Bill mentioned, under the renewed math strategy under the leadership of Jody Barrett, Shelley Corleone, and their team. The RMS had a focus on getting to students' thinking through hearing their voice as they learn new concepts. Our improved results are also a reflection of the collaborative work of our staff. Our grade 7-8 teachers have been instrumental in this improvement, as oftentimes they use tasks directly from EQO as they are open tasks, and they recognize that EQO is really a measure of a student's journey as they move from grade 7 through grade 9 for the grade 9 testing. Our grade 9 team used and continue to use collaborative approach. We have strategic timetable planning that allows for co-planning and co-teaching. Teachers provide students with rich learning tasks and encourage respectful classroom discourse, and students share their thinking and look at math tasks much more openly. Our teachers have been open to learning math in new ways of teaching mathematics, and have used a team approach which has had a positive impact on student learning. A few other things we thought about is that last year was the first year that Gananoque counted the EQO test as part of the student's overall mark, and we think that may have had some impact on students taking the test a little bit more seriously. Also, last year was the first year that EQO removed the time constraints, so the kids had more time to fully answer the questions, to really get into their deep level of thinking, and to fully justify the reasoning of their answers. So our goal this year is to continue with that work, continue to provide students with relevant, engaging math tasks, create meaning, but also to integrate curriculum areas. And our assessment focus is to continue to capture student thinking, not just through products, but through conversations and observations we have with our students. Again, what we've noticed is that students are developing an increased comfort level with sharing their thinking when provided the opportunities to discuss. Our recent math learning team administered a pre-task to grade 7 and grade 9 students, so just so you get a feel of what happens there, we collect the data from the students, and as a team we sit down together, we analyze the student work, we see where they are along that continuum of learning, we identify learning gaps, and then as a team we come up with an approach for how we're going to close those gaps and move the student learning forward. One more thing I'd like to mention is we recognize the new ministry direction this year is to focus on the fundamentals of mathematics, and we actually feel this development will further benefit our students, as this automatic retrieval of familiar facts will only help strengthen their proficiency in choosing efficient strategies when completing math tasks. So I'll pass it over to Bill on the literacy piece.
Thank you, Leslie. As mentioned earlier, 77% of our students were successful with the Ontario Secondary School Literacy Test. However, worth noting is that of the 23% of students who were not successful, 69% of those achieved a score of 290 or 295, where a passing score is 300. So again, very close to being successful in that regard, and what this means is that our work is obviously not finished, and that it must continue, and once again our focus is to move all students one achievement level as measured by report card data and by an increased success rate on this year's OSSLT. So to that end, we will continue to embed literacy in all, we'll take a school-wide approach to embed literacy in all subject areas, regardless of grade and regardless of content. And in addition, we have a past practice and one that we will continue where students have an opportunity to complete practice tests, gain descriptive feedback linked to success criteria, and that helps them identify next steps with regard to improvement.
Okay, now moving on to our wellness, SIPSA. Here we of course don't have EQA or OSSLT data, but we did go ahead and look at the Tell Them For Me survey results, and we found 4 areas in particular that were of interest to us. We found, and again, this is one source of information, but at Gananoque Secondary School, 63% of students that took the survey indicated they have a positive sense of belonging at Gananoque. 58% of students believe that education will benefit them in their future. 30% of students experience moderate to high level anxiety, whereas in girls, this number jumped up to 47%. And 25% of students participate in school clubs. So we recognize some needs for improvement there, and we set some goals. So our goal for this year is to create conditions that support students and staff and experience the sense that they matter, they are valued, and they belong. We want to develop skills in them to manage stress related to their school and work experience, thereby increasing their overall wellness. So in order to help with that, we've done certain things around the school so far, like creating, posting some positive messaging around the school. And if you notice in the slide, there's 2 young ladies from the intermediate division there. The posters are more like self-esteem, respect, and the ones they're holding up there, there's one in particular that we got from the LLMA at the beginning of the year. It was, I matter, I am important, I am enough. These have just been changed to say, you matter, you are important, and you are enough. Other things we've noticed that we see teachers now, more teachers are at the doorway greeting their students as they arrive. We see more positive interactions among staff, students, and students. We see students taking part in extracurricular activities. We'd like to see more participation in clubs, so we're going to survey our students to say, what could our school offer you that we don't already have? And we'd like to see more clubs there. And last but certainly not least is our student success team that meets on a weekly basis. We get teacher referrals, but it's not just referrals for academic success, it's also wellness referrals. So we have a whole team that has early interventions in place so that we can keep track and put some strategies to help our students.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you, Leslie. Last slide.
Oh, sorry.
And in closing, we'd also like to mention that we take every opportunity we can to meet with our students and to gather feedback from them. And on a very consistent basis, many of our students have indicated that they really appreciate the efforts that are being put forth to ensure a culture of high expectations and consistency. And more specifically, we're focusing on improvements with regard to learning skills, as we know these are the skills that will certainly help to prepare all students for a successful life.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to comments and questions, and I'll start with your Trustee McAllister.
Thank you, Chair. Very well done. Thank you. I had the pleasure of being at the school council meeting at GISS last night, and it was very interesting in that it is a vibrant school council, and in addition to that, there were 2 student senators there who made a report, as well as two of the grade 7 and 8 students doing a presentation on TISC. Anyway, I'm very proud of GISS, and you're doing a great job up there, and I had some great parental feedback. I guess the one question I was going to ask you was how you use the Tell Them For Me survey, and I think you've already answered that in your presentation. So I'm going to ask my secondary question, and that is, with regard to the pathways for all students, obviously there are in-school course offerings, online learnings, co-op experiences, and the SHISMs. And like GISS, like many of our schools, is small. So we take a really good look as an option on the online learning. Could you tell me or tell us how we are trying to make that more palatable and more supportive at the school level, whereby it's taken, perhaps it's selected as an option, as a pathway by design as opposed to just default?
Okay. Through you, Chair. Great question. We are a relatively small school, and as such, we need to be very resourceful in helping students understand all of the offerings that are made available to them. So with regard to online learning, we're fortunate in the sense that there is an appetite on the part of many students who enjoy learning online. Most students who take online courses do so by spending time in the TLC, the Learning Commons, with some support that is provided there. I guess for us, we're fortunate in the sense that GSS is a school where online learning is not new. We're not just introducing it this year. It's been a part of the course offerings now for a number of years. And it sort of falls in line, as you said, by design, not by default. It's put out there early with course offerings, just like any other course offering. And it also, I think, really speaks to the fact that it provides flexibility for students and choice with regard to when they can learn, how they're learning, and for some students, quite honestly, they indicate that there's a higher sense of engagement with online courses and corresponding with other students than there are in some face-to-face courses that they've taken.
Supplementary, if I could, Chair? Certainly. I understand that students who like online learning do it well. What about the students who perhaps are having more difficulty on the online learning? How is the school supporting them?
I think it's a matter of, through you, Chair, I think it's a matter of determining what the struggle is. If it's a matter of using the platform and becoming familiar with the technology, then obviously we need to provide support in that manner. If it's if it's a difficulty with regard to the content, then we need to focus our efforts in that regard as well. So I think I think the critical piece in all of that is identifying the level of difficulty and what might be the barrier for learning for that particular student.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? Trustee Bill McPherson.
Thank you. 2 questions. You speak of small. How many students?
Through you, Chair, we have 450 students at Gananoque Intermediate and Secondary School. 325 of those students are in grade 9 through 12.
Okay. Second question. Do you offer French immersion? Through the Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Through you, Chair, we do not offer French immersion. We do offer core French programming.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Through you, Chair.
Yes, go ahead. Trustee Swan.
I was just wondering, I heard that that you're weighting the EQAO results as part of the report card mark, and I'm just wondering how that's being implemented and what kind of weight is placed on it.
Through you, Chair. What the teachers do is before they send the test back to EQAO, they actually sit down as a team and they mark them. They level them, and then they assign, last year it counted as 20% of their final mark, so they assign a mark to it, and that counts towards their course mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Cram.
Thank you, Chair. Very impressed with the presentation. I had a question before I even started, and then I didn't particularly ask it because you answered it very well. And that was with the applied math, how much those results jumped. I mean, they made a tremendous jump, not just a little small one. Even though they went from one level to the next, it was a very low one level to a very high second level. Can you have any other specific things that have happened to help that? Any observations that you've made as to where it's going? Is it going to be able to maintain that level this year? Because we all know students are different year to year, right?
Through you, Chair, we certainly plan to sustain the gains that we've made. In addition to looking at overall results, we're really trying to drill down to look at the data. And if you recall, we mentioned that 28% of our students achieved the level 2. That really speaks to the need for us to focus on moving all students forward. They're certainly very close to achieving the provincial standard, and so it's a matter of drilling down to identify the specific areas that we feel need to be improved upon. Our CIPSAL numeracy team has met once. We will continue to meet and to look into the data and to identify areas to improve. A couple of strategies that Leslie mentioned. One, it's that respectful discourse within the classroom, trying to build a comfort level and confidence with our students to share ideas and to take risks, and then basically, to work with them to demonstrate their understanding when asked to do so. As well, Leslie also spoke about the practice of timetabling so that we have teachers working together. We, of course, would not want teachers working in isolation. We have teachers working together to co-plan and co-teach, which allows for greater support for a number of students.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? It sounds like great things are happening again in Aquay. Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
Moving on to our second school, which is Smith Falls District Collegiate Institute School, or high school. I'm going to turn this over to Superintendent Coombs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce a very experienced and energetic administrative team from SFDCI, led by Marcia McNair in her second year as principal there, as well as her vice principals here tonight, Casey Nelson and Christy Rietzma. SFDCI, and I think I'm going to be displaced from my seat, so very quickly, here they are, and I think you'll enjoy what they have to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to share life at SFDCI. I'm very proud of the many accomplishments, and I'm most proud of the journey we are on presently to support our students so they can reach their full potential and chase their dreams. So being a Red Hawk means being a part of a family. Our Red Hawk family includes 44 teachers, 13 support staff, 3 admin, and 7 members of our custodial maintenance team. This caring group of adults serve a student population of 670. Our Facebook page is truly the face of our school. We regularly share pictures, provide updates, and evidence of student learning in real time. We provide our students with many pathways to suit their learning needs, including 4 specialist high school majors, hospitality, arts and culture, sports, and agriculture. We have a strong Indigenous Studies program where we recently had the privilege of master canoe maker Chuck Commanda, who built a birch bark canoe in our front forum. This opportunity was provided for us through a generous grant from the Ontario Arts Council. It was powerful for our Indigenous students to see themselves reflected in this learning, which further supports our understanding of reconciliation for our school community. Also at present, we host approximately 35 international students from 10 different countries. We are so fortunate to have many strong partnerships within our Smith Falls community, some of which include Smith Falls Police, Open Doors, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and of course our Food for Thought program. We're also very proud of a really strong renewed partnership we have with TR Leger. This ensures that no students fall through the cracks at SFDCI. SFDCI provides students with a variety of engaging co-curricular activities, including athletics and clubs. Some of our clubs include improv, Reach for the Top, Sound and Light, Environment, Difference Club, Game Day Crew, and Student Council, and the list is really endless. In terms of our work and our real focus, I'm really happy to share that our work to improve student learning is trending upwards. We recognize we still have a lot of work to do, but our recent EQAO results, particularly in grade 9 applied math, show an improvement of 22%. This can be attributed to a strategic move to have one effective math teacher dedicated to teaching all of our grade 9 math. And we provide a lot of support to this teacher and the students in those classes through our student success team, our learning resource teachers, and our administration. Our recent OSSLT results also show an improvement of 9%. We spent a lot of time last year building teacher capacity through our learning teams, as well as providing our whole staff with professional development opportunities focusing around learning goals and success criteria. Utilizing our learning partner to further build capacity on our literacy team will help further achieve our goal this year, which Christy will speak about in a minute. Our grad rate from 2016-2017 is at 78.6%. For sure, we want to see that improve. We feel we are on a positive trajectory as our work really focuses on the creation of personalized pathways for students, coupled with a robust student support network, engaging all students and ensuring they are prepared for a successful life. We meet weekly as an SST team, a student support team, to review our at-risk students in grade 9 to 12 so we can assign an adult champion to support these students through collaboration with classroom teachers and regular check-ins with our students. Student success is a priority to us.
Thank you, Marcia. The numeracy team at SFDCI is composed of three teachers, 2 administrators, and 1 learning partner. Although we have teachers from grade 9 and 10, our real focus is on the grade 9 applied math. Our CIPSA goal is as follows. All students, as measured by our focus students, will move at least one strategy along Lawson's continuum. We will promote multiplicative thinking, specifically working toward automatic retrieval, and support the development of strategic, efficient methods while problem solving. In short, we're trying to help students grow their multiplication skills and problem solving abilities using conceptualized problems that we're tracking, and we're tracking the progress along this continuum of multiplication skill development. Our teachers have provided students with pre-assessments that have been tailored to highlight the strategy that is used by students. Focus students' progress is then plotted along that continuum, and we are optimistic as we move through the semester, they will move from left to right on that continuum. In order to develop their multiplicative thinking, our team is committed to the following instructional strategies: intentionally structuring questions with multiple entry points for the multiplication strategy of choice, a reliance on a common math language for naming multiplication strategies, model for students the next most efficient method on the continuum, regular use of descriptive feedback, continuously revisit math concepts throughout the semester to allow for skill mastery, and lastly, provide time for students to review basic multiplication skills. Moving forward, our team is looking to continue using portfolios and video conferencing to help elicit student voice and validate next steps.
Casey? Okay. Our literacy team is comprised of 4 English teachers, a learning resource teacher, our learning partner, and our admin team. For the past several years, our literacy team has been focusing on teaching reading strategies, specifically inferencing or reading between the lines, which is sometimes overlooked because the assumption is that kids come to high school already as proficient readers, and we know that that's not the case. So this, along with a school-wide commitment to embed and teach literacy skills across all curriculum areas, has resulted in an improvement of our OSSLT success rate. This year, our data revealed that we need to remain focused on teaching students how to effectively read for meaning and how to use that information to provide details in their written responses. Our CIPSA goal is 50% of our students, as measured by our focus students, will improve their written responses to a variety of texts using the co-constructed success criteria we established. Additionally, our first-time eligible students' OSSLT results will improve by 3%, taking us to a 78% success rate. So currently, our teachers have analyzed our students' first pre-assessments and their work and have created a plan to address the gaps in learning. Our next step is to co-construct success criteria with our students for what's important, what matters, and what counts when writing responses to text. This criteria will be used by teachers when they are providing descriptive feedback to students. It will be used by students themselves to help revise and self-reflect on their writing, and be used when students are assessing each other. As a team, we will strive to collaborate and share resources with each other and teachers across all departments, because literacy is everybody's job, so that together we can learn strategies that will support literacy development for our students and help us reach our CIPSA goal.
Thanks, Christy. Our wellness team is comprised of 6 teachers and 2 administrators. We believe that if staff and students work collaboratively on developing red hawk healthy habits, then students will improve and demonstrate overall improvements in their mental health. Our team carefully and thoroughly analyzed the results from our spring 2018 Tell Them From Me survey. Even though the survey was very telling to us about some of our needs and students' focus areas, it wasn't enough for us. We wanted to dig deeper. And so then we gathered more data from specific grade 9 and 10 students. So we chose 7 healthy Red Hawk habits that we want students to improve on. We created a Google survey, and we implemented this survey with 3 grade 9 classes to date. We are presently at the stage of reviewing this data so this can guide our next steps. Following an implementation time frame tailored to address whatever student needs we really see in this data that we dug deeper in, then we will further survey these students later on with some follow-up questions to see if we've made improvement. And this would guide us into what we might do in cycle 2 of wellness, depending on the results we get from cycle 1. We want to continue to use the Supporting Minds document with staff to promote students' mental health and well-being. We also want to continue to provide our students with opportunities to participate in weekly yoga sessions, to participate in the teen fitness program at a community gym, which has been generously taken on by our school council, and we've received many sponsors and donations from our community to support the students' registration in this gym, as well as our wonderful Foundation of Champions for Kids. We want to ensure that all students have access to a healthy breakfast and lunch program through our Daily Food for Thought program that is provided to our students. We are very proud of the collaborative approach many of our staff have engaged on throughout our Red Hawk Big Ideas. We provide students with real and authentic learning opportunities where they can share their talents and their passions, as well as create a space where all students belong. These experiential learning opportunities combine several curriculum areas through Big Ideas to maximize relevance, rigor, and engagement for all students at SFDCI. Our Restless Red Hawk Cafe is a perfect example of moving students from achievement to accomplishment. In conclusion, we have a rich history of education at SFDCI. We enjoy celebrating student success by being creative and innovative in our offerings. We take pride in building a culture of care for our diverse learners. Students are at the center of all that we do, and we are very proud to learn with and from them each day.
Thank you. I know that your trustee, Richard, she's not able to be here tonight, but I do know that she's extremely proud of the work that's happening there. But I will say just a couple of words on her behalf. Actually, they're on my behalf. I haven't had a lot of experience in Smith Falls at the high school, but I have had 2. And from those 2, you can see down in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got a rock star playing the piano. I assume that's me. That was my first experience to Smith Falls in the Red Hawk Cafe. And then later, I think it was a week or 2 later, I was a part of some fundraiser and had a chance to perform there that night. But I also had a chance to sit back and watch what was happening at the school in both those cases. What's really evident when you walk through the door is how important relationship building is, and it starts with the top and moves throughout the school. The things that your staff are doing with students to create that relationship and that connection is powerful. It's evident there, and I was just joking about the rock star part, because if you look, you've got students, you've got teachers all playing together to create a wonderful atmosphere. You've got students in there serving us lunch, and Trustee McPherson, you were there that day when they served us, and you could watch how the staff interacted and worked, and the kids were amazing. And then later that night, you watch the magic that Chef Byrne is doing in the kitchen and engaging all of those kids, and it all comes back to the relationships. And the relationships are so powerful in any one of our schools, and I know that it starts with you folks, so it's amazing. Comments or questions from others? Trustee Bill McPherson.
Thank you. I have a long connection with SFDCI. When I seen you were presenting tonight, I went in my closet and grabbed my SFDCI jacket from 1970 something and got it on as far as my elbow. But looking at this last slide, if you look at slide number 2, those are my hay bales. I got shanghaied by one of your teachers looking for a wagon to move a teepee. And after he got the wagon, he says, "Would you mind throwing 50 bales of hay on that thing for me?" So I can't play music like the chair can, but I sure as heck know how to bale hay. One of the things that I find about these reports, and I speak to all schools, is we're measured a performance, but we have no way of measuring the vibrancy of these schools. And I have to admit that my children both attended SFDCI. One with special needs, one has gone on to university. And their experience traveling through SFDCI was not without its problems, but in the end was amazing. And I think I speak for a lot of schools in our board. We're not a cookie cutter type of board. Each school has vibrancy in it. I did see one thing I do want to ask you about, just so that, and again, it's coming back to my roots. You offer a high skills major in agriculture. Can you explain to me how that works? I do know somebody wanted to put beehives on the roof at one point.
Through you, Chair, yes. This has nothing to do with the beehives. Last year when Jeff Trasick and his team brought forward the opportunity of bringing additional high school majors to our schools, I put that out to staff, and instantly we had a couple staff members jump up and say, yeah, I want to look into this further. So it's really, the agriculture theme is coming from a place in construction. So in our tech world, one of our tech teachers is really interested in the agricultural piece and kind of preserving that rural Ontario, even though we're not a city school, but a little bit more inner city school than some of the rural country schools we have. So that seemed to be a good fit, and really wanted to try to revive a bit of our tech wing, and maybe not continue with that traditional focus of a construction schism. So to expand a bit more, and then hopefully we can bring that whole big idea into your science curriculums and your geography curriculums, and lots of different areas that agriculture could really fit in. It also meshes quite well with hospitality, because we do grow a lot of our own herbs right on site, and we have our own little garden there. So it just kind of brings some of it more together than just leaving some of these in isolation, some of these schisms.
Thank you. Trustee Cartner.
Thank you for your presentation. I can feel the energy back there, and bring it on up. Your school is one like my high school in my area is a 9 to 12 school. And I'm curious, many of our high schools have close contact to the grade 7 and 8s. Could you explain to me what you're doing with your feeder schools in relation to the 7 and 8 programs?
Yes. Through you, Chair. That's a great question, and Superintendent Coombs will know that is a big goal of mine, is making a strong connection with our feeder schools. At present, we do a couple things. We actually just sent an email out today from our Arts and Culture Schism, offering 7 and 8 students to come into our school and participate in some workshops within the arts, drama, visual arts, music, etc. However, we start probably about December really digging deep into looking at our reach out to our feeder schools in preparation for course selection and going out to present to the schools in early January. Along with that, we meet with all schools, LRTs, and admin staff, and personalize some programming for every grade 8 student coming into our building. We have a strong partnership with our parent council. They really believe in this, connecting with our feeder schools before these students get to us. We invite students over to different events that we host. We were very lucky to have students from Chimo walk over, being our neighbor school. We had kindergartens come over to see our canoe making, and then we had grade 7 and 8 students also come over to learn a little bit about that. So we do reach out. It is certainly an area that we want to dive a little bit deeper on. It's something I believe we do have work to do in that area, and being my first time in a 9 to 12 school, I really do see the value of that 7-8 connection, and so we really want to focus a little bit more on that.
Thank you. I knew there was something happening.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Jacobs.
Through the chair, I was just very curious about how the canoe is included into the students at the school.
Through you, Chair. So the canoe, as I mentioned, the grant came from the Arts Council. The canoe now sits at St. Lawrence College. It was that's where it was landed, or that's where it was supposed to go and be on display at its conclusion. That was part of the project. It was in the front forum for 2 weeks, and all students in the school had opportunities on their own as well as with their classes to come down and participate as much as they would like with the canoe building, to hear a lot of great learning from the 3 instructors that were there sharing with the students. And there was one particular grade 11-12 math class that came down and started doing a lot of math work right around the canoe, measuring and taking this information back to the room, and they expanded that into, they were building little tiny houses using lots of information they gathered from just learning about building a canoe and trying to make some authentic real learning back in their classroom. So it was a tremendous experience that it'd be awesome to see that happen in many schools. There was a lot of soft skills, but a lot of intentional learning that occurred as well.
Thank you. Trustee Bill McPherson.
The canoe was an absolutely amazing project. From where I sit, watching it transform into raw material to the finished item was amazing. I drive school bus there. The kids in the bus were talking about it. When you see that kind of engagement in a project, and you had it in a perfect spot in the foyer, and it was just an amazing, and the end result actually was amazing. It looked really good.
It really was, yeah.
And the whole ceremonies that you went through was a tremendous learning experience. And again, I'd like to see it replicated in other schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. I'd like to thank both schools. There's great things happening. You're sitting here very proud of the work that you're doing. So thank you. Safe travels home. Okay, moving on to the next item is the board improvement plan for student achievement and wellness. I'm going to turn this over to 3 people. Our Jen McMaster, Principal of Teaching and Learning, Shelley Corleone, Principal of Teaching and Learning Program as well, and Brad O'Neill, Principal of Program. Welcome.
Thank you.
I believe this is the long piece of paper we all have?
Yes.
Okay.
On behalf of the principals of the teaching and learning team, I'd like to thank you all for having us here this evening and giving us the opportunity to chat with you about our Board Improvement Plan for Student Achievement and Wellness. Our goals as a team this year are 4 pillars. We're focusing on literacy and numeracy, precision, intentionality, and collaboration. Our board, or our district's vision, is creating futures, leading and learning for all. And our board's mission is we prepare all students for a successful life. Our team's mission is we prepare all students for a successful life by creating engaging learning experiences and improving assessment and feedback practices.
So we've shifted our focus a little bit this year in our school board in that we're intentionally aligning all of the school's foci for the year, as Jen just mentioned, a focus on engaging learning experiences and assessment and feedback practices. We've been analyzing our data, EQAO, report card, and all of the school's SIPSAs, and listening to our administrators and our teachers in the schools. And they want to work collaboratively with others in order to dig into the learning together. Research shows that when people work collaboratively, we improve outcomes for students. And so we're using that data to focus on engaging learning experiences and assessment and feedback practices. We recognize as well with the trustees' work plan that we need to focus on decreasing stress. And you just heard a few minutes ago from SFDCI around the engaging learning experience around canoes. We strongly believe that if we focus on engaging our learners and providing them with clear criteria for what is expected of them and provide them with some feedback in order to improve, that not only will we improve student achievement, close gaps, but we'll improve wellness as well. So one of the big areas is engaging learning experiences. We've provided schools with choice within our engaging learning experiences. They can choose global competencies as an example, student voice, purposeful planning as a means to engaging our learners. And so all schools made a selection, and now we're having them come together based on the selection that they're focusing upon. We're doing exactly the same thing with assessment and feedback practices. Some schools are focusing on establishing learning goals and co-constructing success criteria with their students. Other schools are at the stage now where they're providing descriptive feedback, or better yet, having the students assess their own work against the criteria and giving their peers feedback. So the big focus this year is going to be on alignment. The work that we're doing is providing opportunities for schools to collaborate with each other, looking at student work within the classroom, aligning that with school improvement, which then feeds our board improvement plan.
So in looking at literacy, one of our rich sources of data, of course, is our EQAO scores. Taking a look at our primary results, our primary reading has been going up steadily, and as has our reading. A couple of years ago, we took a little bit of a dip. We were just under the provincial average. However, last year we were up to 80%, which is the highest we've been, so we're very proud of that. The primary writing is dipping, as is the junior writing, so that will be a focus of ours this year, to dig into what's happening there and put some strategies in place to improve those results. Our OSSLT is trending downward, and we've put together a comprehensive literacy support plan as well as a comprehensive assessment support plan, specifically focusing on our grades 7 to 10.
As you know, the ministry has been focusing on mathematics for the last 2 years, and now a little shift to the fundamentals of mathematics this year. In our grade 3 and 6 world in mathematics, despite the fact that the province has been declining in their results, we have plateaued. So it doesn't seem as though that's much of a gain, but in relation to what the provincial results are, we're starting to close the gap between Upper Canada and provincial results. You heard stories earlier from Gananoque Secondary School and their grade 9 results. That has been a big focus area of Upper Canada District School Board, is working with our educators in grade 9 mathematics. And if you look at both the academic and applied, we are trending upwards, actually closing the gap with the province in our academic and applied level classrooms. And last year we had a huge jump in terms of the applied level learner in our schools. And we're very proud of the trends that we're seeing. We know, however, that we can't wait for that lagging EQAO data because we don't see that data until the following year. So we really have embarked in Upper Canada, and this is our 3rd year doing so, on a pre-assessment to know where are our focus students who are representative of all of our students and what intentional moves we can make as educators in order to help move those students along in their learning journey. And if you notice, you've been provided with a sheet. We have taken all of the SIPSA data, so all of the schools' focus student data, and compiled all of that as a board. We now have a pre-assessment of where our students are along that continuum of numeracy development, and now we have some targeted strategies that we can focus upon not only as a school but as a system to improve student outcomes.
So looking at our literacy goals, by the end of 2019 we will increase the number of students achieving level 3 and 4 in primary and junior EQAO reading by 3% and the writing by 1%. By the end of 2019, the number of first-time eligible students achieving the provincial standard on the OSSLT will further increase over last year by 3% as compared to their grade 6 EQAO reading and writing results.
In numeracy, we're focusing on that continuum of numeracy development. So Smiths Falls was alluding to their focus students in their school. We're doing exactly the same thing as a board. So moving from left to right, we want to improve students' ability to work fluidly with numbers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, fractions, decimal, all of those foundational skills that students need to have some number sense. And as we move towards the right-hand side of the continuum, we're moving towards efficiency and automatic retrieval and proficiency with numbers. And so our goal in numeracy is to move every student at least one strategy along the continuum. And if you look at the top or in the chart on the bottom, there are phases. And for many of the students, we want to move them phases from that direct modeling, which many of our students, if you look at the data, still reside, to more working with numbers and proficiency. That definitely is our target for numeracy. In terms of literacy and numeracy, in terms of our actions, it goes back to what we spoke about a few minutes ago. If we can engage our learner by creating those engaging learning experiences cross-curricularly for our students, starting with where their interests are, and then tying in the curriculum in many content areas, or even within one content area, and have students passionate about what they're learning, and then infusing the mathematics, such as the example with the canoe, that we're doing measurements and we're building the canoe and applying math skills, as opposed to just some rote, pretty boring learning. If we focus on those engaging learning experiences and we establish clear criteria that are targets that don't move, we know that our students, their achievement rates will improve. They will close gaps in their learning, and more importantly, they're going to be well students, because they're going to want to come to school. They're going to want to talk on the bus about the experiences that they're having. They're going to want to go home and share with their parents the experiences that they're having. So that definitely is aligning everything that we're doing in our board around those engaging learning experiences and assessment and feedback practices, which lend themselves to every content area, not just literacy and numeracy. We need to monitor the work that we're doing. We can't say that enough. We can't wait for EQAO data or report card data to come out in order for us to take action. We have been working now for 3 years in terms of having educators with their students in their classrooms on a regular basis, assessing where their learners are at. We're targeting that learning in terms of writing this year, in terms of reading, specific comprehension strategies to have that comprehensive literacy package. We're doing the same thing in mathematics. Where are our students now? What is the key idea or learning that happens behind the scenes to move them to the next strategy? What can we intentionally do as educators to build that capacity? And then repeat and repeat and repeat over and over again as students are learning throughout the semester, throughout the term, throughout the year. And we can only do that by monitoring the work that we're doing. And we monitor that at all levels in Upper Canada District School Board. So when the superintendents have family of schools meetings, the SIPSA is on the table, and we're talking about the students, our focus students, we're talking about how we're improving learning. When we're at leadership learning modules, principals are getting together in like groups based on their choices in both of those areas and talking about strategies. They were talking about it today. What strategy are you using in terms of co-creating success criteria? How are you moving the learning forward? Because it's not just the then student part, it has to be about the if educator part. What are teachers doing and what are we doing as a system to build that capacity? The work continues in learning teams in the schools. It's supported by learning partners in our intense schools, and it happens at the student desk on a daily basis. Observations, conversations, and products. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to comments or questions. Trustee Partner.
Thank you. Once again, it's a lot to take in, but one thing that you mentioned was that the data for EQAO is 2 years behind almost.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard through Gananoque's presentation today that their teachers evaluated the tests before they sent them in so that they could create a score for their report card. Is that something that you would consider with all of the schools, to see where the kids are according to how their teachers have evaluated the tests?
So through you, Chair, it is actually a very common practice that many, many high schools do assess the EQAO assessment as part of the final mark in student achievement. But again, the EQAO assessment happens at the end of the semester. So it's not until the end of the semester where we know how students are doing. And by then, they're earning the credit and they're finished in the course. So we want to flip that on its head and do that assessment at the beginning of the course so we know where our students are in September, and then we take action, we assess them again, we've moved them, we haven't moved them, let's work as a team, bring the student work to the table as a team, let's talk about strategies and let's go apply the strategies and then come back again with more student work and do the cycle over and over again. We know that that's how we're going to leverage that improved learning outcome for students, is in the work daily in the classroom and not waiting for the end of the semester for EQAO or the following September to get the results.
Just a follow-up to that, please. I wasn't zeroing in on using part of that for the evaluation on the report card. I just, the other part of it.
Right, okay. Through you, Chair, thank you for your clarification. And it does, provide some information that we use because it's not just a mark and waiting for it. Teachers can then meet and collaborate about what we're seeing maybe in semester 1 to then use that information to inform semester 2, for example, in the high schools. But again, it's different students in semester 2 and it's lagging data. So we really want to look at the students in front of us and focus upon a pre-assessment or a mid-assessment or a cycle assessment of where they are today, tomorrow, and the next day in our classrooms.
Trustee Bill McPherson.
Through the chair. Question. Just trying to word this right. This is basically for mathematics literacy. Given that a great many other subjects, especially at the secondary level, involve literacy in math, for instance, sciences, carpentry, do these strategies bleed over into other parts of your school, these schools, besides just the math department?
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Through you, Chair, that's a great question. In our PA Day in September, we focused upon content area in terms of financial literacy, mathematical literacy, and language literacy, and every single teacher was tasked with following the same protocol and process. 3 focus students administer a pre-assessment. So for example, we gave an example in the health and physical education curriculum where there's some infographics about actions students can take to be well and healthy, how much physical activity they should have a day, that sort of thing. Administer that to the students, and then you get some mathematical learning in health and physical education, and every single educator in our system had to apply that to one of the content areas in which they teach. So the construction classroom, the science classroom, the art classroom, the French immersion classroom, and we actually cut out of the curriculum documents for every single content area, K to 12, exactly what it says around literacy and numerical literacy, so that they had something to ground the work in based on their content areas.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Cram.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow that up, Shelley, is the pre-assessment that you're going a board-wide pre-assessment that is given out, or is it an individual school pre-assessment?
Through you, Chair, a very good question. In the literacy reading world, as a board, we have some assessment tools that already exist. So, for example, the Fontes and Pinnell. So many schools applied the Fontes and Pinnell, so that was a standardized test that many schools, or the PM benchmarks is another example. So in reading, that might look a little bit different. In mathematics, we created a bank of about 28 questions that were not grade specific, very open questions to get at the number fluency. That is the focus with the ministry this year. Schools then met as a team and decided which of those they wanted to administer. And in following with the professional PPM that came out, teachers could also create their own, so they had some choice there. In reviewing all of the SIPSAs, we've discovered that most schools have administered some from the selection that we've given in terms of providing some choice for students. And then what's happening now is educators are building capacity in terms of what strategy is the student using and where are they on the continuum. Because students may appear to be using an algorithm, But if they're not using it accurately, then they're really not at the proficient stage of using the algorithm. So teachers are talking about student work and then being intentional about where they're placing them along that continuum. In terms of the other content areas, we allowed for the schools to choose the teachers and educators who are the specialists in those subject areas to determine what assessment they would use in order to administer that. So sometimes the departments came up with them together. Sometimes in a small school, a teacher would have come up with one on their own. So it varied depending on the area.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing there aren't, and thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Right, moving on to the next, which is an action item. This is the review and findings of the International Baccalaureate Program at BCI Brockville Collegiate Institute. Turn this over to Superintendent Mills. Before we do that, we have a motion that should be put on the table first. It's the motion, I just need to get the discussion going. The motion that the Upper Canada District School Board discontinue the International Baccalaureate IB program at Brockville Collegiate Institute, with the last intake of grade 11 International Baccalaureate IB students occurring in September 2018. Board resourcing and support of the Brockville Collegiate Institute International Baccalaureate program would conclude June 2020. So we have a mover. Trustee Cram and Trustee Karpner. Okay, so I turn this over to Superintendent Mills.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you. Tonight I'm bringing to the trustee table a staff report on the district's International Baccalaureate Program, or IB, at Brockville Collegiate Institute, BCI. It's important for me to bring this to the board given the significant investment the board's made in the IB program in terms of dollar amount, over $1 million the past 10 years. As supervisory officers, all of us at the table, we monitor and report to the board on program developments, and we wanted to make you aware of the return on investment. Tonight I'd also like to welcome Principal of BCI, Chris Boston, as well as Vice Principal David McDonald, who joined us this evening. It's also important that we acknowledge the fine work of the staff, the teachers who are involved in the IB program, and many administrators, some who are around this table, who have worked at BCI over the years with the program. In addition to the background you see there where the program started in 2006, it's of note there's been declining enrollment and student interest in the past number of years, 6 to 7 years. In May of 2017, the director received a request from staff to review and examine the program. And we did hire an expert external examiner, Neil York Slater, and you do see the report in your information to board this evening. You'll see his background there, including doing a review of programs in the Ottawa area. The origins of the IB program are before you, starting in 1968, and it was provided to students to balance their education, to facilitate geographic and cultural mobility. I think it's important for the trustees to know that what you see before you tonight, in terms of IB origins, things have changed in Ontario in the last 10 to 15 years where this might have been unique back in the early 2000s, that through curriculum changes in curriculum as well as expectations and changes in global education, for example, and global competencies, that much of what we teach within the Ontario curriculum now is present within IB. There was methodology in the report that Mr. York Slater used, including interviewing key system staff that actually teach the courses at BCI, previous principals, superintendents, as well as the local trustee. Enrollments at BCI have not dipped significantly in the last 7 years, and it's something I'll get back to. We did review the IB regulations and school-specific data. Definitely refer to the strategic directions of the board and trustees as we go through the presentation. I'd like you to be aware of the strategic directions and maybe how the IB program aligns with those strategic directions. And we certainly reviewed current Ontario Ministry of Education foundational documents with the external reviewer. A number of considerations before you. The diploma, there's a certificates that students can get through the IB program, but the main thing is output, and that would be diploma, and there are definitely requirements there. There are rules we must follow as an IB school. I mentioned the certificates. School size and configuration is also something we need to consider. BCI is the second smallest school in Ontario, public English school that's offering IB in the province. There's a scheduling of classes we need to discuss, staffing, finances, our ministry priorities, as well as an equity piece. There are 6 key subject areas within IB. Students will take up to 15 courses in order to get a diploma. And it will take 2 years of high school, so it's for grade 11 and grade 12 students. And it's also important that we note that this is not mandated by the ministry, it's an add-on. So we have students that are going for their Ontario Secondary School Diploma, and we have other programs within the board, for example, Specialist High Skills Major, Co-op, Con Ed after school, summer e-learning courses that we offer as add-ons as well, but are funded by the ministry. The IB program is not funded by the ministry. Within the IB core, there are also some additional things that students are required to do, but also staff have to monitor. And DP is the diploma program, and it broadens this experience for students. And I'd like you to pay attention there to theory of knowledge. The extended essay, which is a 4,000-word paper, and creativity, action, and service. While that is a big commitment for students and certainly staff to supervise, it could be put forward that we require a lot of that within the regular curriculum and the regular program for students that are going towards an Ontario Secondary School Diploma. I mentioned the diploma requirements, up to 15 courses, which is significant in your grade 11 and 12 year. Up to 150 hours extra. And staff, we require on the goodwill of staff, certainly, which we have to this point, that designated staff trained outside the class have to provide extra mentoring and supervision of students, which is outside of the collective agreement requirements. In recent years, however, of concern is no BCI students have achieved or even attempted the IB program. And so in a 3-year period in terms of output, the main goal in order for us to be aligned with IB regulations is for students to attempt and complete the diploma, of which we have none. Since 2015-16, only the English and biology higher level streams have run at BCI, and the higher level stream has not been offered. As a result, students could not qualify for the IB diploma. Given this, BCI appears to no longer be in alignment with the IB program standards and practices, of which you see on the screen before you there. The certificate program, where students can gain a certificate in a specific subject area. The numbers are there before you in terms of the last 11 years. And while they have gone up and down, certainly the lowest was the last few years, we have not exceeded from 2014, 2015, or even if you go lower than that to 2012-13, the numbers there. And if you're thinking in terms of numbers, for example, last year at BCI, they would have, these are grade 12 numbers, strictly grade 12, where students would get a certificate after grade 12, whether they've taken 2 subjects or two courses in a subject area or 3. And for example, last year in grade 12, only 7 students at BCI would have gotten a certificate out of an enrollment of approximately upwards of 160, 170 students, so 3%. School size and configuration is something we need to consider as well. In the Brockville family of schools, we have BCI and TIS. We also have schools in the outer regions where parents certainly drive their kids into school and or get a ride. We do not provide transportation going forward from South Grenville or Athens or to the certain areas to the west, which is in the Gananoque school zone or the Rideau school zone. But within the Brockville area where we do have shuttles going between the two schools, we would have between BCI and TIS upward over 1,000 students in 9 to 12, maybe upwards of 1,200. And despite that, we still are having difficulty with the program enrollment numbers. Interestingly, through the interview process, many respondents identified the grade 7 to 12 model at BCI as an issue. And you'd ask, well, why? Well, in terms of promotion. Students come in grade 7 and 8, and it was noted earlier in the Smiths Falls school presentation about how it's important to maintain that contact with their feeder schools. Well, we have them right in the school. What it really tells us is students are happy with the Ontario curriculum, and as they have 4 years to consider going into IB while they're at BCI, yet the numbers still have remained low. Staff identified scheduling of classes as an issue, and the issue being that we have to provide split classes in order to run. Otherwise, we would have classes of 4 or 6 or extremely small. And by running combined classes, we are arguably spending board dollars more wisely. But within running those split classes, a classroom learning environment with combined, the IB students are largely self-directed and engaged in individualized learning. It's very precise IB. There's not a lot of flexibility in terms of what is required. And within that, you have that on one side, and then on the other side, you're asking students to perhaps do it on their own or with guidance. We have 10 staff who are accredited to teach IB classes who've been trained, and they require training over time, so that's a cost. And completion of the IB components, which I mentioned earlier, rely on extracurricular involvement by the IB and trained teachers as mentors and monitors, and we would require them to continue to do that over time if the program was to be continued. Trustees are well aware with the budget that was passed last year that there was a budget deficit of $1.8 million, and there's a responsibility for us as staff to recommend to you programs that are engaging, that support student achievement, public confidence, and that we manage our resources wisely. And we need to decide tonight, or you need to decide tonight, whether it's an investment to continue given the outputs and what I've put before you with the report. Students at in an IB program like BCI are given something that could be argued as unique. This is from the IBO.org website. Students who would be asked to think independently, drive their own learning, apply to high-quality universities, cultural competency is a second language, and global competencies are something that we would have an expectation in every school, and we should have an expectation that it goes well when it's systemness. And while the diploma program is a strong pathway through IB for university and higher education entry and performance, all of our schools provide that for all of our students. We have students in a lot of schools that think independently, and we have programs that are enriched for them to do that. Cultural competency has been a huge focus. You trustees heard at the last board meeting about what we've done, for example, in Indigenous education, and The presentation tonight you had from Smiths Falls about the 35 international students, for example, that we have at Smiths Falls. We have a very small number of students, and there are competing priorities within the core business of the board in terms of student achievement and student well-being. At present, we're spending approximately $130,000 per year of board funding in addition, that we do not receive funding from the ministry for, to support the IB program. When you see there one section for the IB coordinator as well as 5 overlay teaching sections, that's equivalent to 1.0 full-time equivalent teacher or one FTE. In addition to that cost would be the fees for the being an IB school, yearly fees, as well as additional resources and or training. So if we are to continue offering offering IB at BCI and to be compliant with the required regulations, it's a significant increase in terms of funding that staff would recommend, doubling the cost approximately, from about $130,000 to over $260,000. I mentioned earlier about ministry priorities, which certainly then become board priorities and individual school priorities. Achieving excellence is student achievement, equity, which is a big focus of our board, wellness and public confidence. So we need to decide, or you need to decide where we want to focus our dollars. 21st century competencies. If you just bear with me for a minute in terms of some global competencies: collaboration, communication, citizenship, critical thinking, innovation, creativity, entrepreneurship, self-directed learning. That's just not something we would expect of a student that's in the IB program. That's something we would expect would be provided for all students, and that we would develop those competencies and skills of all our learners. And that comes from the framework of global competencies that's noted there. In terms of global education for Ontario learners and strategies, we need a whole school and a system plan and to be successful, which we've been working on, not just focusing on one school and one program. The last one there in Ontario Strategy for K-12 International Education. Trustees may recall that I was directly responsible for international education before, and it's part of my portfolio now as a supervisory officer. We have 450 roughly international students this year in all of our schools. We did create a brochure and promoted the IB program abroad, and we still do. But there wasn't much uptake on that, and we've had very few international students over the 11 years that have wanted to be part of the IB program, and that tells you that they're coming here for the Ontario curriculum and wanting to be part of the Ontario curriculum experience in our schools, just not IB. Equity is one of the ministry's 4 goals, and we have a responsibility, certainly as supervisory officers and principals and school staff, to close gaps for many learners. And more needs to be done for students who struggle the most. And those equity considerations include, due to proximity, not all of our schools, not all of our students in the area can access IB because we don't provide transportation. If we did consider providing transportation, it would be a huge added cost for students to come to one site. And there is a significant cost for a student to get to the end of the IB journey to get a diploma, upwards of $2,000. And in terms of the equity piece, and as a board, we would have to decide for students that were unable to afford that to pay that amount. So in summary, we're talking about a small number of students. There has been great work done by the staff at BCI, and that should be acknowledged. The teaching staff are extremely committed, and the administration has been supportive as well. But we don't offer equal access at this point for all students in our board. The IB World Organization requirements, we are not fulfilling them as they're stated. The Ministry of Education in any document does not make IB a priority. We rely on the staff's goodwill for the extracurricular piece. And we would have to more than double this significant funding we're already provided on top, which is not funded by the ministry, to offer standalone classes for all IB courses. And as the enrollment stands now, if we offer standalone courses, we may have classes of 1, 5, 7. Maybe some would be larger, but certainly small numbers. So in conclusion, there are two options: to continue with providing the IB program at BCI with additional funding to support the addition of teaching sections. Additional course sections and funding is required in order for BCI to meet the IB standards and practices, or to discontinue the IB program at BCI with the latest intake of grade 11 IB students having occurred in September 2018. And as the chair noted at the beginning, the recommendation is before you, and I'll read it, that the board discontinues the International Baccalaureate program at Brockville Collegiate Institute, with the last intake of grade 11 IB students occurring in September, having occurred already in September. Board resourcing and support of the BCI IB program would conclude in June 2020. Whether a student is in grade 12 or just to add to that, if a student was to start it this year and then take a year off, for example, or for different reasons come back, the recommendation would not be to fund it in 2021 if a student wanted to take a 3-year period. It would be ending in 2020. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for through the chair to the trustees for accepting the board report on IB.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Mills. I'm going to open up for comments or questions.
Through you, Chair.
Trustee Swan first. Yep.
Thank you for the excellent presentation, and even gave me a greater understanding of the program. I know the main reason my daughter chose VCI was for the IB program, which she decided not to fully pursue. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, Bushra, but are you in it, and what's your opinion on it?
She's not here tonight.
Okay. Sorry. So anyway, that was my other question. But two, I think I want to thank Superintendent Mills for stating that it's my understanding it's $600 per course that parents have to pay. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, no, that's not correct. There are fees that the school pays, that the board pays.
Okay, but you said it was $2,000.
There are fees for the IB exams, $375, and then it's on slide 21, Trustee Swan, and then $150 for each subsequent IB exam. Because there are 15 courses to get an IB diploma, it's upwards of $2,000. Now, I don't have my calculator in front of me because it's in U.S. dollars that are charged, so we'd have to look at the exchange rate now, but it's around a couple $1,000.
Okay, so that's where the $2,000 came out. I thought
correct.
it was 2,000 times 6 main subject areas.
No, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bill McPherson.
Just through the chair. Is this a program that if a student had met the graduation requirements for a secondary diploma that they could do in their victory lap year, so to speak?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no. It's a 2-year program that would require 15 courses to be completed.
Okay.
Trustee Cram.
Thank you, Chair. How does our experience with the IB program compare to other boards who were offering the IB program?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our experience is that some boards in large with large school populations and/or metropolitan areas would offer it in 1 or 2 schools. You have to remember that they would have public transportation to get there, or use public transportation, and/or fund other students to come from outside in terms of transportation.
Notwithstanding that, Chair, are they in decline even though they can offer it in a larger geographical
Through you,
area?
Mr. Chair, Superintendent Coombs brought a report to the board in 2016, about 2.5 years ago, which noted the number of schools which have increased the numbers.
Okay.
The numbers have not declined in terms of schools that are offering.
Thank you. Trustee Cartner?
I have 2 questions. First of all, is there any other high schools in our area that have shown any interest whatsoever?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just clarify if you're, is that just Upper Canada?
Yes.
No.
Okay. And my second question is, if we pass this motion, that means that the BI certificate courses are gone as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, as of, so there would be no further intake of students next year. So the students that are taking IB certificate and or working towards diploma this year can finish next year. So there would not be any students taking certain courses next year because they would not be offered. It would only be the ones that are in grade 12. So not all of the classes would stop as of September of 2019.
Okay, to follow up on that one, it seems to like they were on your slide presentation that there was an increase in the number of students taking the certificate courses and achieving them.
So
And
I'm going to just bring that up through you, Chair.
what are we offering these students otherwise in 2020?
So through you, Mr. Chair, those students can continue because we are going to provide the same funding this year.
Yes, I
For
understand.
IB. And those students that have indicated they would like to pursue the diploma may also do so and complete. We are just not going to allow any.
I'm talking about the courses that they take to
Yes.
get those certificates. They're strictly BI
IB
certificate courses.
right.
So we have to replace them with something that's in Upper Canada.
Which we already have through you, Chair. We already have those courses in place, which are the standard curriculum we're offering for the OSSD. So, for example, we're offering like different three levels of three English courses in the IB program, which would be replaced by English courses of the regular curriculum through the Ministry of Education.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. I have a motion before me. I'm going to read it out. Moved by Trustee Cram, seconded by Trustee Cartner, that the Upper Canada District School Board discontinues the IB International Baccalaureate Program at Brockville Collegiate Institute with the last intake of grade 11 International Baccalaureate IB students occurring in September 2018. The Board, resourcing and support of the Brockville Collegiate Institute International Baccalaureate IB program would conclude in June 2020. I'll ask you to cast your votes, please. Mr. Jacobs? Oh, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Superintendent Mills. Okay, moving on to the next item, we have 3 motions that are going to come out of this. Each one deals with a different policy, so we'll take one motion at a time. And before I turn it over to the Director, we'll do the first motion. As the Upper Canada District School Board approved the revision of Policy 124, Code of Conduct, effective October 24th, 2018. I need a mover for that. Trustee McAllister, seconded by Trustee McDonald. And I'll turn this over to the Director, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, trustees have before them tonight a report that Superintendent Perry will be sharing with you, ensuring that the board's policy register is current and up to date. members of the board know that with the legalization of non-medical cannabis that took place on the 17th of October of this month, that there needed to be some adjustments to policies and procedures of the board following the direction of the Ministry of Education and their adjustments to their policy and program memoranda, of which these policies are derived from. So before you, Mr. Chair and trustees, is staff effort to ensure that the policies have been thoroughly reviewed, that the board had received advice of legal counsel to ensure that the changes and adjustments were aligned with changes to the policy and program memoranda coming out of the Ministry of Education, and to ensure that we can continue to maintain a safe and respectful school environment given these changes in our local communities. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Perry, Mr. Chair, for further comment.
Through you, Chair, I'm bringing forward a number of policies this evening for consideration for review. We begin with the board mission. We prepare all students for a successful life, and the policies that we have guide us in that preparation for the students. On October 17th, cannabis was legalized for people 19 years of age and older. The Cannabis Act went into effect, and this permitted people who were 19 years of age and older to buy, possess, cultivate, distribute recreational cannabis. This led to amendments to the Education Act to reflect suspension, expulsion, and code of conduct changes because cannabis still remains prohibited at school and on school property and at school-related activities. The resulting change to that provincial policy, the PPMs, and the direction by the ministry that the school boards must make the necessary revisions to school board policies to align with their updated PPMs. And so we've been working on this for some time, bringing the alignment into place, and the codes. Sorry, I'm reading right off the top there. The policies that you see listed on the slide are the ones that we have been reviewing because they are impacted by the changes in legislation related to cannabis legalization. So this evening I'm going to be speaking about 4 in particular: the Code of Conduct, Policy 124, UCDSB Code of Conduct, Student Discipline Policy 126, and the Smoke-Free Environment Policy 441. And each one of those is linked to the current policy that is in place. In terms of Policy 124, the suggested revision under the section purpose of the code is to amend it to state to discourage the use of alcohol, restricted drugs, non-medicinal cannabis, and illegal drugs. Again, under Policy 124, under the attachment, the Code of Conduct, the key revisions found under the headings of safety speak specifically about, in the section where it talks about giving alcohol or restricted drugs to a minor, to add or cannabis as well, to be in possession of any restricted drugs, non-medicinal cannabis, weapons, including firearms, and be in possession or under the influence of alcohol, non-medicinal cannabis, restricted or illegal drugs. And this document is cross-referenced with Policy 126 as well. In terms of 126, the student...
Are we done with the 124?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so what I want, we have a motion on for 124.
Yes.
So I'd like to just stop, get a conversation on that, and we'll take a vote on that. Comments or questions on that particular change?
Just a question. The slide that's on the screen, you mentioned alcohol twice, and then you mentioned cannabis 3 times. In your second bullet, should that not mention alcohol as well? Because if a student's in possession of alcohol at a school, I imagine the discipline should kick in. But here it's omitted.
Any other comments or questions on that? Okay, Trustee McAllister?
Well, I agree with Trustee McPherson's question. So what's the answer?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get a feel right now. So you're agreeing with it?
Yeah.
We're all agreeing that it should be added, so it's just a matter of adding alcohol to that It's the second line, is that right, Trustee McAllister?
Yes.
Okay, so for consistency's sake, you want
Yes,
alcohol.
that's all it.
Trustees are fine with that? Any other? Trustee Cram?
Thank you, Chair. With the purpose of the conduct, and without going into the other policies that are coming forward, does any of this apply to community use of schools, after-school because basically it's to do with, if I read it right, just with our own particular students?
Director?
Mr. Chair, through you, the design of the Code of Conduct from the Ministry of Education was to apply to all school members, quote unquote. So it's presumed that it applies during the school day, after the school day at school functions, and on buses. So it would not apply to community use, as an example, which is why we have the policy on community use as part of the review as well.
The document itself is a schedule to the policy, at least reflect what the intention is at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Noted? Got it. Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, with that being said, we have the motion before me. That is moved by Trustee McAllister, seconded by Trustee McDonald, that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the revisions of Policy 124, Code of Conduct, effective October 24th. Cast your votes, please. And Trustee Cram, Mr. McAllister, in favor. That carries. Thank you very much. The second motion is that the Upper Canada District School Board approve the revisions to the Code of Conduct document appended to Policy 124, Code of Conduct, and appended to Policy 126, Student Discipline, effective October 24th, 2018. Moved by Trustee Bill McPherson, seconded by Trustee Kartner. And I'll turn this back over to Superintendent Perry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will continue with Policy 126, the Student Discipline Policy. Again, making reference to the key revisions under the heading of safety, giving alcohol, restricted drugs, or cannabis to a minor, be in possession of any restricted drugs, non-medicinal cannabis, weapons, including firearms, be in possession of or be under the influence of alcohol, non-medicinal cannabis, or restricted any legal drugs. And again, there's a cross-reference to Policy 124 in that one. And that's the revision for 126.
And I think going back to that second line again, alcohol would be stuck in there. All trustees understand that and noted. Lisa, thank you. Okay, any comments or questions on this? Seeing there are none, I ask you to cast your votes, please. And that carries. Trustee McAllister?
I'm in favor.
Thank you very much. The last motion is the Upper Canada District School Board approve the revisions to Policy 441, Smoke-Free Environment, effective October 24th, 2018. Again, a mover and a seconder. Trustee McDonald and Trustee Kartner. And I'll turn it back over to Superintendent Perry.
Through you, Mr. Chair, under Smoke-Free Environment Policy 441, there was a revision to remove the Tobacco Control Act and add Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017 and regulations as amended from time to time as they apply to the properties of the board. And there's an addition of the following statement: despite the prohibition from smoking or vaping cannabis products at a school and or board facilities and properties, an individual may require accommodation for the purpose of consuming medicinal cannabis. In such cases, the principal or appropriate superintendent should be informed in advance to identify an appropriate accommodation plan.
Comments or questions? Trustee Bill McPherson.
Just clarification. Given that medicinal cannabis has been legal for many years, has this ever been an issue previously? Just out of curiosity.
That's information that I do not have at this time.
Okay, so, okay.
Any other comments? Questions? Trustee Kirkner?
This is for everybody, not just students, right? So in here, it says, in such cases, the principal or appropriate superintendent should be informed in advance. So if it's some of the staff, they report to the superintendent of that section?
Director?
Mr. Chair, through you, so if it's staff, it would be whoever the supervising superintendent would be. If it was through community use, it would be the superintendent who would be overseeing community use if there was that request.
Okay.
Trustee McPherson?
Just a question. If this applies to staff, trying to word this right, is there anything built into it to prevent somebody, say, that's working in a woodworking shop of functioning under the influence of prescribed cannabis?
Director?
Mr. Chair, through you, fit for duty is a key consideration for any person that's working in any organization, regardless of whether they were taking medical marijuana or any other kind of prescription. And staff will be bringing policy 235 to the board, which is about our use of drug and alcohol by staff or by our employees, and I think we'll have that properly addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing there are none, I'll ask you to cast your votes on that, please. And that carried. Trustee Cram, Trustee McAllister, all is good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Superintendent Perry, for that. Next on the list is report of the Special Education Advisory Committee. I'm turning this over to the Chair of SEAC, Trustee McPherson.
Thank you. We had our second last meeting of our current SEAC on October 2nd in the boardroom. First off, we started off with a presentation on augmentative and alternative communications, which is basically various methods of communication can replace or augment a student's own voice. This was presented by our speech and language pathologist, Kim Cantwell-Lee, and it was, I have to admit, a pretty amazing presentation. That they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, in this case, 3 or 4 pictures creates a conversation. Then we had an EA staffing update from our Superintendent Ron Ferguson and Principal Debbie Banks as well. Then we moved into the Superintendent's report, and we talked about the extra staff that's being hired to SIA to speed up the process of getting our tech equipment out to those students that need it. Then there was a short presentation from Kimberly Wright that talking about the 3-part dinner series about inclusive education that's happening in the Brockville area. And that, ladies and gentlemen, summarizes my report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Thank you very much, Trustee McPherson. Moving on to the next item is the Director and the Chair's remarks. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, October is always a busy month, and we appreciate the work that our staff are doing. Just following on the heels of Trustee McPherson's report is knowing that many of our staff in the month of September and leading into October are focusing on the development and consultation and implementation of the individual education plans for our students. We have a 30-day timeline, as many of you know, and the purpose of that 30-day timeline is to make sure that in a very timely way, children who have learning needs or accommodations that may be different from a peer has that in place well within the range of the startup of the new school year. This is not easy work. It's important work, and it's also work that generates a high degree of public confidence. And we really do appreciate our staff and their investment in that work every year, but particularly at the start of the year when it's a very busy time for all of us. So I wanted to make sure that we could acknowledge and thank our staff, principals, vice principals, learning resource teachers, classroom teachers, our superintendent, and all of our superintendents that make sure that that's a very credible and useful documentation for students. Also, I wanted to make sure, Mr. Chair, that we acknowledge that our focus on leading and learning is very important to us in our district. We had an outstanding Leadership Day today in Kempville, and I do want to thank the folks that you heard from this evening who presented the board improvement plan for student achievement and well-being. They were key to that, as Superintendent Barrett was as well, to coordinate that. But all the folks who are part of the senior team were present and accounted for as part of this day. And I think that really sends a very strong message that we're all invested in that kind of learning, and that it's actually making a difference. You heard two great examples from two very different schools about how our investment in classroom learning and instruction and assessment is being very focused, and the perseverance that we see that our school learning teams are making in these areas to make sure that we're making a difference for students and their learning. So I really do commend them, and I do really want you to know that we're making good use of the resources that you've given to us as a board to make sure that we're improving student learning and getting very close to what we think is going to make a difference for students. So, Mr. Chair, back over to you.
Thank you, Director. I have two things I want to talk about. The first is I want to make everyone aware, not just us, but anyone that's tuning in. The Ministry of Education has proposed a province-wide consultation on education reform, and we are duly elected representatives for public education and local community. We have an immediate interest in providing input and feedback through this avenue, in addition to offering feedback through the Provincial Trustee Association, OPSPA. So the feedback is going to come in two forms. One would be an online submission for feedback, and the second would be scheduled telephone town hall sessions across the province. There are 4 dates for the provincial telephone town hall. October 30th from 12 to 1:30, October 30th from 8:30 to 10, that's in French. November 16th, 12 to 1:30, and November 22nd, 6:30 to 8. And so I would suggest anyone that's interested in getting involved in this that they would visit the town hall section on the consultation website, and I believe, Director, we have a link on our website to this.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so there is a link. So the government is asking for opinions. We as trustees certainly have a right to give our opinion, but we also have a very strong voice through the Provincial Trustee Association as well to give that feedback. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. The second thing, this is a reminder that the Upper Canada District School Board is celebrating 20 years as a board. And I recall back being a teacher, I worked for Leeds and Grenville. And I'm sure, Tim, you worked Vermont Dundas, and Carol, you were out in
Prescott
Russell, and do we have anyone that taught in Lanark? Anyways, we had the 4 boards that came together over 20 years ago. I don't think it was a marriage made in heaven. It was probably a forced relationship, but over the 20 years, we have bonded together as a board. And coaches, teachers, you name it, all competing in harmony as one board. And the thing that amazes me the most is to watch these young kids who are competing against schools they did not even know existed. Yet they now feel that they're part of a huge, something bigger than just their school or their small community or the area they live in. They belong to Upper Canada. And when you get the opportunity, and it's not just sports, but it just happens to be sports that was the venue I was involved in, you understand very quickly what it means to be Upper Canada. It's big, it's huge, but we represent so many people, so many different communities, And I just stand at those things, and I beam with pride for a number of reasons. Number one is that this is us. 80 schools, elementary schools, and there could have been more, but some didn't show, but 80 schools, young kids, all with their school jerseys on, but ultimately Upper Canada. I look at the staff and the volunteers, retired staff coming back to put this on because they're proud of Upper Canada. And I can't thank the people involved enough to be able to give the opportunity for our young people across Upper Canada to come together as one. It's powerful. And I just wanted to tie that into the fact that we are 20 years old. And I think the marriage is going pretty smooth now. So here we are 20 years later. Okay, moving on. I need a motion that the Upper Canada District School Board move into the Committee of the Whole at 8:26. Moved by Trustee McPherson, seconded by Trustee McAllister. Just a show of hands. Thank you very much. And the second motion is that the Upper Canada, the Upper Canada, put that in my brain, the Committee of the Whole move into private session, October 24th, 2018. Again, moved by Trustee McAllister and Trustee Kirkner. A show of hands. Thank you.